I have been every voice.
You are the chosen one! Anakin! Anakin!
This is where the fun begins.
Inside your head.
Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another Bad Batch video. As you can tell, I've been doing these quite a lot recently and I hope you guys are enjoying them. So let me know in the comments if you enjoy this style of video. Your feedback is so important and I always want to be making videos that you want to see. So in today's video, I'm going to put forward a theory that I have, and to back it up, there is some really strong evidence in both the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian. I believe that Omega as an adult is going to appear in the Mandalorian universe. It might be in the Book of Boba Fett, the Mandalorian Season 3, Rangers, or even the Ahsoka Tano series. My money is on the fact that it's probably going to be in the Mandalorian Season 3 or even Season 4, and you'll see why as this theory unfolds. My theory connects the current events of the Bad Batch with what happens further on in the timeline in the Mandalorian, and it assumes that Omega survives. The theory is also based on the premise that Omega was in the plan for the Mandalorian all along. In a sense, the Bad Batch serves as a prequel to her story until she appears as an adult in the events following the fall of the Empire as we see in Mando. So without much further ado and without any more jibber jabber, let's dive into it. Our starting point is the Mandalorian Season 2 Chapter 12. We were all taken aback when we saw Snoke-like clones being made by the Imperial Remnant in that episode, and a lot of us were left wondering if those were the same clones that would eventually become part of Palpatine's return. What's important is that we can assume that they are Force sensitive. We're going to come back to the nitty-gritty details of this in a moment, but let's first focus on the one person who is key to all of those experiments. Dr Pershing, a mysterious scientist who wears the Kaminoan badge on his arm. I believe this is far more significant than we think, and a deliberate addition by Favreau and Filoni to connect it to other parts of the Star Wars universe, notably to Omega. We can assume from the badge on his arm that he works for the Kaminoan cloning facility, but the big question is, why would they let a human work as a scientist on Kamino when we know from Attack of the Clones, the Clone Wars, and the Bad Batch that all of the scientists on Kamino are Kaminoan? Well, the truth of the matter is that it's very likely the Kaminoans are going to be killed at the end of the Bad Batch and taken over by the Empire, who seek not only to take over but to learn the cloning secrets of the Kaminoans, and this is how I think it's going to happen. Right now in the Bad Batch, the Kaminoans are trying to figure out how to create a superior clone. It's possible that these could be Force sensitives or just an accumulation of all of the powers that Clone Force 99 have, but either way, I think Omega is the specimen that they're primarily after. Soon enough, Tarkin will completely stop the creation of new clones, but seeing that the Kaminoans have created or are in the process of creating super clones, the Empire will demand the secrets to creating such beings. Naturally, since there's going to be nothing in it for them, the Kaminoans are going to refuse to give the info to Tarkin, and that's when I believe the Empire is going to step up its game and Palpatine is going to send Darth Vader to the Kaminoan facility to demand the info. Giving in at the last moment, the Kaminoans are slaughtered by Vader one by one, just like how he dealt with the Separatist leaders on Mustafar. So why is this all important? Because it's the reason we only see human Kamino scientists, or rather scientists singular, in the Mandalorian. Essentially, the scientists like Dr Pershing are just pseudo-scientists who never mastered cloning and never even got close to what the Kaminoans could do. After the events of the Bad Batch, and once the Kaminoan facility has been completely taken over by the Imperials, they spend years and years trying to get remotely close to what the Kaminoans could do. But luckily for them, they do have one advantage. Palpatine had been trying to clone himself for a very long time, even prior to his death in Return of the Jedi. By the time he did perish, they, alongside the Exegol cloners, were able to use the knowledge left to them to make prototypes for his return, just like the ones we saw on Nevarro in Season 2. Since they needed clones to be Force sensitive, they went after Grogu because he had a high midichlorian count. Now that Grogu is with Luke, whose hand was also used to create Snoke after the Empire Strikes Back, the Imperial Remnant is going to be seeking out other Force sensitives in the galaxy. I think it's pretty likely that Moff Gideon was bluffing in Chapter 16 when he told Djarin that he had everything he needed from the child. They did not extract enough blood as it would have killed him. This is where my theory has two possible directions. The first is that the Empire has intel on where Omega is, and they end up seeking her out, and her story might connect to Mando's journey at some point. I think this is a pretty weak plot point, so I'm going to go with the second option, that Omega's fate after the Bad Batch is dark. I've put this forward before before and I'll say it again now. Much like the inhibitor chips could manipulate the minds of the clones, what if Omega's programming is similar? What if she is in fact a personal Palpatine clone? In episode 2, Cutler Quain told Hunter that the Kaminoans do not create without purpose, and there's no way Omega was just created to be a medical assistant. We know for sure that she is enhanced, but what if she was created to be a Force-sensitive Palpatine puppet? Could a darker side of her be activated soon? In this theory, Omega is the prototype for future Force-sensitive clones, and by the time of The Mandalorian, what if she is the big bad behind the Imperial Remnant and running the cloning facility? Essentially, someone who worked her way up beside Thrawn, and she could be an enemy that Luke or Ahsoka has to confront. Alternatively, let's explore a possibility that she's an important clone, maybe even a Palpatine clone, but instead of remaining, she decides to escape with the remaining members of the Bad Batch and builds a life for herself elsewhere in the galaxy. In this instance, she is someone who Mando comes across later on in the timeline. I've seen theories that Omega is in fact Omera, who we saw in season 1, but I think that they're different characters and the name similarity is just a coincidence. What I do think is likely, whichever way Omega's fate turns out, is that she's important to not only Dr Pershing, but the Imperial Remnant on the whole. I think it's also worth taking this opportunity to dismiss other theories I've heard that I believe are far-fetched or just silly. For example, the Snoke theory. We've heard a million Snoke theories ever since The Force Awakens came out, but here's another one. A lot of fans are either ironically or unironically stating that Omega is Snoke. She almost definitely isn't, and I don't think I need to explain why. Another theory I fundamentally disagree with is the idea that she's Rey's mother. She can't be, because according to the visual dictionary for The Rise of Skywalker, Rey's mother was a regular human, and her father was the one who was a Palpatine strandcast. Also to note, the timeline wouldn't add up, and it doesn't seem like the direction that Dave Filoni would take. Then again, I could be wrong. There were rumours a few months ago that Lucasfilm plan on making Mando come across a young Rey in the timeline, so hypothetically it could be possible, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't think I am. But what do you guys make of today's theory? Do you think we'll see Omega in The Mandalorian Season 3 or elsewhere generally in the Mandalorian universe? I'm curious to know all of your thoughts, so let me know down below. Also guys, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the notification bell, do all of that good stuff down below, and if you're feeling generous, please consider contributing to the channel by becoming a patron. For just $2, $10 or even $50 a month, you get exclusive access to content that's not found here on YouTube, and that includes Star Wars Explained videos, my Forgotten Characters series, my megasodes, and if you choose the highest tier, you get to speak to me once a month for 60 minutes about anything you want. I'm Star Wars Meg, wishing you all a phenomenal rest of the day, no matter where you dwell in the galaxy. Have a good one.